And we're back here with David Coffey talking about the SCORE initiative on This Week in Roane County. David, can you start by explaining a little bit of the difference in what SCORE is compared to Race to the Top?
Sure. Tennessee SCORE is a citizen initiative in collaboration with the government, certainly, because that's where the action happens. But it is funded strictly outside of the government, so that it has an independent look at the schools and what's going on from the consumer's viewpoint, frankly. Now, in doing that, it's brought in everybody to the table. As I mentioned before, this brings in the Teachers Association, this brings in the education schools, it brings in the government action that goes on, but also business interests, foundations, those people, other people who are concerned about education. And the product of our schools largely goes to either business or to the colleges. So we needed both of those at the table. Now, Race to the Top is quite different. Race to the Top is an initiative from the Obama administration, which provided over $4 billion of funding that will be subject to a competitive race between these states for the funds. Probably no more than 6 to 10 states will qualify for these funds, which means there's going to be a lot of money available for the states that are able to get the grant. The outcome of that will not be known for several months, but the application has already gone in from Tennessee. Part of Tennessee's submission on the Race to the Top was to get the agreement of the State Board of Education, the TEA, and all the different parties that, yes, these are acceptable conditions. We will do some changes. We are accepting the changes. And let me tell you what the big change is. We're going to pay attention to what the students are learning. Guess what? That should be a eureka moment somehow. But the strange part is, and this is really strange, is that it has been a generation now since Tennessee put in the value-added scores, showing how much a student learns from one year to the next in the academic subjects. One generation has gone by, and right now, only 14% of Tennessee teachers have ever looked at those scores. We know that number because they have to get a password. They have to request a password, and when they go on, don't know how much time they're spending on it, but only 14% of the teachers have even looked to see how much their students are learning. Well, that's not right, and everybody knows that's not right. So what we're trying to do, and what the legislature is doing, and what the governor is doing, is try to get people to focus on the data. Look at what the students are learning. And this is the most essential element going. Actually, our data, Tennessee data, is probably the best in the nation. It is outstanding data, the value-added accountability data. The problem is it has not been used. And we're just now starting to learn what you can do when you really pay attention to the data. And everybody knows that makes a difference. If you're on the track team, you're focusing on the data. If you're on the football team, it's the data. In business, you're looking at the data. Everybody has that competitive edge that they have to live with, and that's what we're trying to do in Tennessee.
Can you tell me how much this new initiative is going to affect the teachers and their way of teaching? What's going to have to change on their end first?
It will be dramatic. There's no question about it. The teachers will, I think at the end, the teachers are going to be tickled about it because it's going to show them some new ways and some new results that they hadn't even anticipated could be accomplished. But it will be different. One of the differences is that if your value-added scores are not adequate, you're going to have to face up to them quite a bit more. The state will keep a record and a published record by school and by, I believe it's by subject, I'm not quite clear on that part, but they will keep a record of who is in the top quarter of all of our schools in teaching, say, mathematics or reading. They will look at the top quarter, the second, the third, and the bottom quarter. And those people in the bottom quarter are going to have to show that they're changing, that they really are looking at it and changing. And the local communities are able to adjust salaries based on that. Who ever heard of that? But that literally is in the legislation. The question of tenure is no longer solid. If a teacher is not getting adequate student gains, tenure is not solid. They will be reviewed independent of any tenure condition. That's in state law now. And the commitment that was made in the Race to the Top proposal was that whether we win the money from the federal government or not, these changes are going in place. So Governor Bredesen has done wonders for our kids. I'll salute him from here on because he has done a wonderful job, and Senator Frist too, in bringing many of these to light. So between them, they're doing a great job in our government.
How, if the state of Tennessee gains the money from the federal government for the Race to the Top program, how will the state of Tennessee continue to fund that program when the state of Tennessee is already in debt?
Well, we're not in debt, first of all. we have a budget problem, as we always do. I served 10 years in the legislature. I'm very familiar with that. Whatever money is available, we spend it. That's the name of the game there. We do have a deficit problem that we're worrying with right now. We have to have a balanced budget. By our Constitution, Tennessee state government has to balance a budget. So we come up with ways to do that. And there are ways to do it. One of the things we have not been able to do is pay differentially for those teachers that may have skills that go beyond the usual skills in the classroom, and consequently they are hired away by business and other places. Those typically come in mathematics and the sciences. In those areas, engineering, sciences, and mathematics, there's a big demand. Some people will teach whether or not the money is there, and more power to them. They're wonderful folks, the ones that can pull that off, and some right here have done a tremendous job in that. But for the most part, you need to compensate people for their talents and for their hard work, and when somebody has done a special job, they need to be compensated. So that's going to be part of it, is looking at the compensation. Part of it is in the accountability. Those schools that are in the bottom quarter are going to be identified publicly, and it will be more difficult to run and hide. Now, the schools right now, if you want to see what your schools are doing, let me give you an easy way. And this is the education-consumers.org, that website. You can call up the current elementary school record and see just how your schools are doing compared to the state average. You can also look at the state average. You can look at some other information, and in particular, I would encourage you to look at the information on Ready to Learn, special seminar that was put on about Ready to Learn, and that's on that website, where you can look at what goes on in the earlier grades, because the grades for elementary school, only 4 and 5 are typically reflected in the data.
David, we've got to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back with David Coffey on the SCORE Initiative on This Week in Roane County.